to do in the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Raspberry Pi to one side for the moment. So I'll put that over there. Put that back there. I'm going to put that over beside it. Now I'll probably make a few mistakes, a few technical mistakes possibly along the road. Well, a light lit up. That's always good. Let's flip it over, see what we've got. And there we go! We are cooking with gas, people. There's me, Luke. Hello. You don't want to be looking at me, you want to be looking at the Android. So there we go, powered by Android. Obviously that OS was installed and tested a while ago when I did the first build. Hello, and welcome back to a video. As you probably saw from the first little bit of the video there, this is a bit of a retro kind of thing going on. 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I did a video on putting together the Pine64 with a touchscreen. And that actually has proved to be the most popular video on my channel by a long stretch. So thank you everyone for the comments and for the likes and for the for just watching that video. I hope it was useful. People have said it's one of the best tutorials on how to fit that touchscreen that's actually there, and that's a comment came in just a few days ago with that comment on. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Obviously the noise in the background of it, the raging fans from the computer at the time were a bit of a thing, but obviously people have got past that and enjoyed it, so I'm glad. So we're doing a bit of a revisit on the old Pine64 today. So here's the beast itself. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a ad blocker for your network. Well, for my network, you're not going to use this, and hopefully you'll find this as useful as the last one. Now, what's an ad blocker? Essentially, you can set up a little DNS filter server which will filter out adverts and some spyware stuff on your system, on any system in your network. So if your computers and your phones are all connected to your Wi-Fi or to your normal wired network in any way, then this little beastie will actually stop them from serving adverts and basically block them off. So it's a more secure system. You don't have as much spam, you don't have as much potentially dangerous bits of content coming onto your PC. So as you can see, I've got the back of this already. We're going to have to do a bit of jiggery pokery inside. Just let me leave that all the way off. Now firstly, what I will say is I've already done this, so I've proved that it works before I've made the video. So I want to be slightly more professional and kind of a bit more fluent. In order to do that, what we need to do is we need to get rid of some of the stuff on here. Now this is my Pine64 layout. As it was, I've already unscrewed this cardboard shield so I can get that off nice and easily. Yeah, I thought we'll do it without losing all the screws, but nope, it's me we're talking about. I'll get those screws out of there before they damage something. Where's the other one gone? Ah, there it is. Right, I'll grab that back off. Now, I've found, doing this the first time, that this is my Wi-Fi shield on the back of the Pine64, and I've discovered that this does not work. I don't know what's wrong with it. It just blocks up the network and blocks up the installation process of Linux and doesn't work at all. So we've got rid of that. What we're going to do is we're going to use just ordinary wired Cat5 network connection through a power board, power plug. So that's a network connection going through your mains, which works surprisingly well. Now on the way through, obviously we're going to be using a Linux distribution from the Pine64 website itself, and we have to install that. This is the memory card where my working Pi-hole is currently installed, so I'm not going to be overwriting any of that. Instead I'm going to use another piece of kit, a micro SD to SD card extension cable and an off-brand SD card with the right content on. So what I'll do is I'll wire all this up. I actually bought this for the 3D printer, but I haven't got around to connecting it yet. There is a very useful piece of kit. As you can see, it's just very, very long cable. with an adapter on the end. Unravel all that. Just hoping it works. If it does work, you'll see this video. If it doesn't work, you won't see this video. So I'm going to push that into there, and I'm going to push that into there. So there we go. Okay, so that's one thing done. Now the other thing is that out of the box, Linux distribution doesn't tend to work with a touchscreen. You have to set something up for that. So I'm going to disconnect the touchscreen as well. Avec ça. And avec ça. Not entirely sure if that is a touchscreen cable, but I'm going to disconnect it anyway. So I'm going to keep those safe off to one side. Right, so now, as with most of these bits of kit, you need some power, and we will need network connection. And we'll need an HDMI connection. So we have an HDMI connection here, a network connection here, and a very handy dandy power adapter that I can't actually get far enough around to let you see. There it is. It's a 3 amp dedicated power supply plug with a USB-C connector on it and a micro USB adapter on it. Makes a bit of a bulky plug, but it does work. So what I'll do is I'll plug all of that in. Oh, also I have a keyboard, a wireless keyboard connector. So let's get on to plugging everything in. So I really need to move that. Now once I get this connected up, it's not really going to be visible, because we're going to be doing everything on the monitor that's just sitting behind us here. So I just want to make sure I get everything plugged in before I come away from here. So we'll make sure that's plugged in. Like so. And because I've now lost all of the movement ability for the because of this cable, I'll plug this in blind. There we go. As you can probably see, I've been doing this for quite a while. Got kind of used to it. Right, so now I'm going to turn that the other way around. As I say, the touchscreen is not going to be getting used. Plug the network cable in. So there is my hand. There is the Pi hole, or the Pine64, which will become the Pi hole. Wireless USB connector, memory stick, and all of our connectors just sitting on there. Now what we are going to do is we're going to run this through a television at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll switch this on. I'll just point at this telly, and hopefully we'll always get the majority of the picture actually on the screen. So let's switch on. Power light has come on the Pine64, and hopefully we should see something come up on the screen. Fingers crossed. we go. Worked the second time. So what we've got on there, we had the we've got the login on there. Now I'm just going to use the default settings on here. Obviously, when I've done this on my own build, I've used custom settings. And the majority of the stuff you're going to see is going to be up in this corner anyway, so I'm not going to worry too much about seeing the entire screen on here. But we'll try and make it so that my logo isn't in the way. So what I'll do is I'll move my logo across the other side for now. That's the wrong keyboard. I do that quite a lot with these things. Right, so that's my logo out of the way. Maybe silly things to do, but anyway. So yeah, there we go. Is that focused properly? Just let me check. So we're going to be doing quite a lot on this screen, so we need to make sure this focus is dead on. So let me just double check. Let's get as clean a picture as we can see. I think that's close enough. Okay, so default username and password. What I'll do, what I actually meant to say to you is this tutorial is kind of based on a few things on the Pine64 forums. So way back in the day, 2016, obviously Pinehole came out, Pine64 came out, lots of different things happened, and someone on the forums was kind enough to put together a tutorial, a couple of tutorials on how to get this going. So basically what we're installing is Ubuntu. The version of it is off the Pine64 website itself, so you can go to wiki.pine64.org and look for software release, and it's got a whole wiki page full of the software release types. And what we're looking for on this one, what I've used is the Xenial Minimal Image. Pretty sure that's what I've used. Yes, Xenial Minimal Image 0.6.2-77 by ayufan. AYUFEN. It's number 3.11.1 on the list on that page. And if I've been clever in editing, you may have actually seen that pop up on the screen. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. But that's where that's come from, and that was recommended by damikeh. So again, on the Pine64 forums, you have a Linux on Pine64 Plus, Ubuntu, and I posted a step-by-step how to install Ubuntu image by damikeh, and it shows you, it basically talks you through most of these steps. So this memory stick, memory card thing that I showed you earlier, was installed and created by using the Win32 imager. Now you download that, you install it onto Windows, you download the image file I just told you about from the wiki, and you install one with the other onto at least a 32 gig memory stick. I'll give you enough space. It says at least 8 gigabytes, but I find if you're going to use something like this, then it's best to have at least a little bit of expansion space on there as well. So you extract it all, install it all, get your Pine64 login on there. Now again, I'm using the default login password for this installation. So the user is Pine64, and focus has gone again, and the password is Pine64, and there you go. Ubuntu is actually my favourite Linux distro. It's the one I've always seemed to roll back to at some point. So again, I'm going to have to apologise for the really poor focus on there. I'll try not to faff with it too much. Let's try and get on with it. So we're logged in. We're all popped into there. So again, that's damikeh's installation instructions on how to install Ubuntu, and then you move across to Tom D and his Pine is a pie hole. Does that make it a pine hole? Write up on how to install Pi-hole onto this piece of kit. he does have a disclaimer on there that says he's no expert. Neither am I. I'm not an expert. This is a hobby thing, and I saw Pi-hole on someone else's piece, on someone else's network, and thought that's a fantastic idea. So anyone who knows me will tell you I really cannot stand adverts. So anything I can do to get right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to do the updates and the upgrades. So we need to go sudo, which is our faking root option, apt-get update. Now this obviously needs to be on a network for this, so this is where your network cable comes in handy. Ask you for the password again, and then it starts to install everything. So that list basically just goes down a whole load of stuff, fetches packet lists, that kind of thing. So we'll nip down to the bottom now, and it's just a bit of time while that completes. So not long. The upgrade is longer, so you can use up arrow to go to your previous command line, and then just replace update with upgrade. Now this one takes a little bit longer. So yes, we do want to continue. Essentially this takes between 5 and 10 minutes to do. It's not a long thing to do. Bear in mind, even though this is on a monitor, it's still running on our trusty little Pine64. Sitting there flickering away. Okay. I need to try and get myself a better setup in terms of video recording, don't I? Obviously this is the same camera I've been using since the original Pine64 video, which is quite scary. Alright, so now we're working out which encoding to use. Now, leave most of the things on here have to be left as default. Guess optimal, I'm just going to make sure it's on the right one, which is Latin 2 Central Europe. Oops, that's installing everything. So we're back down to the bottom there. Yeah, I mean this took a little bit of research to do. The friend that I went to visit, who has this on his network already, has used it on an old style Model B Raspberry Pi, using Raspbian, and then installing Pi-hole as normal. Obviously Pi-hole, given the name, is obviously designed for the Raspberry Pi, but I thought I'd give it a try on the Pine64, and lo and behold, it worked. Quite a lot of support. Obviously the Pine64 is still going. There are new versions of it now. Is it the Rock 64 it's called now? Something like that. But it has evolved in the same way that Raspberry Pi has, which I'm glad to see it's still going, because it's a pretty good piece of kit. I could never really get it to work properly with Android on it. The touchscreen is okay, but to be honest, the Pine64 has sat in a drawer for a long time, propping other things up, because I couldn't really find a decent use for it as it stood. The wireless adapter didn't work, and couldn't be bothered going to get any more bits, and obviously it's been a bit difficult to try and get parts for this particular model of it now, other than places like eBay or American sites, because it was a very American product. It was kind of difficult to get hold of in the UK. And obviously the expansions all came from America, and you could get some stuff from places like RS, but not all the time, and actually quite rare to get hold of them now, which is a shame. So I can't get a replacement Wi-Fi card, I can't get a camera, which I would have loved to put on there, and I've had a lot of different ideas for what to do with it. I thought about using it as a CCTV central viewing thing, but I just can't get the right pieces of technology to go on there. I have had a few ideas about what to do, but this is the latest one. Obviously the rest of the ideas that I've had have kind of not really worked, and they all involve a little bit of messing around. And to be honest, I've tried a few different versions of Android and never really got on with it very well. Couldn't really work out how to get Linux onto it on a touch screen, and it's taken a little bit of mucking about and a little bit of trying to get hold of resources and bits and pieces for it to work. And one thing that I did have to realise early on is that the power supply I was trying to use was actually underpowered for it. I was trying to use a 1 amp power supply plug with a USB cable to try and power it, and it just wasn't enough, and I'm wondering if that might have been the majority of my problems in the first place. So it's tempting to see if I can maybe multi-purpose this thing. Now that Linux is kind of on it with a Pi-hole on it, if I'm going to be running it 24/7, I don't think there's any particular reason why I need to why I can just single purpose it. I could always have multiple purposes for it. I could use it as Pi-hole as well as using it as a central CCTV control box or anything else really. As part of putting Pi-hole on, we do need to install PHP, and it does run as a little web server. Obviously I think PHP runs, it's got its own little web server built in, but it does serve out a website that shows you your caches and your stats and all that kind of stuff. So it works. As I said, I've had this working. This is literally an attempt to record the process so that you guys can kind of follow along and see where I got to with the Pine64, and see that I still have it. I've still tried to enter something periodically is the word I'm looking for. I don't know why I went enter. Periodically sort of drag it out and try and do a couple of things with it, but they're kind of short-lived, kind of half mobile, half tablet ideas that I've had, like the CCTV thing, or like using it as a game board for stuff, or using it as a media center, but just the storage capacity, the speed of it just wasn't enough to handle all the modern ideas. And obviously then my friend Drew said that he'd put together this Pi-hole thing. Just happened to be that when I went down to visit him, he was reconfiguring it. I'll point out social distancing was involved, not within the household, because obviously we're pretty close with those guys anyway. We know them really well. We've been isolating, so have they. So we're good. So they've been through some stuff the last few months. We gave them a bit of a hug and a bit of a chance to have a chat and just see other faces now and again, which is good for us as well, actually, to be honest, because we're the first people we've really gone to visit. Visited a few other people on the way down. Well, one other family on the way down, and that was properly socially distanced in these weird and wonderful times. Yeah, it just happened to be reconfiguring it because it kind of fell over and he had to reinstall everything and get it working again. So I saw the kind of tail end of that, and he showed me what it does, and I thought, you know, this is a great idea, an amazing idea. And it wasn't until the drive home I kind of thought to myself, oh, I've got that Pine64 board. I could use that. I could try that. Well, hey. Yeah, so, and there we go. So there we are now. Right, so we're installed. We've done the upgrades. Everything's now up to date. We've got a nice shiny copy of Xenial Linux, which is a Ubuntu derivative for the Pine64. So what we're going to do now is we're going to install a few extra bits and pieces. Now, the chap Tom D, who has done this walkthrough, says that he puts on his favourite editor, which is Nano. So I'm going to install the same. I'm going to basically do the exact same thing he does in his instructions. apt get install Nano, it's a text editor, and PHP 7.0 CGI PHP 7.0 FPM. That's right. Sudo apt-get install Nano PHP 7.0-CGI PHP 7.0-FPM. Ta-da! Do you want to continue? Yes. So what we're doing now is we're installing, if you haven't used Linux before, then basically what we're doing is installing some software from the online archive from Ubuntu, which is how Linux does everything. Linux really takes us back to when computers were young, so the days of MS-DOS, if anybody remembers all that. I apologise if you can hear some noises in the background. The area where I live in has a lot of people living in it who tend to want to scream and shout as they walk up and down the street for some bizarre reason. Very common thing around here. Not the best area in the world to live, but you know, I spend all my money on stuff like this, not trying to buy a house. Ah! Although I'm starting to regret that decision, quite frankly. Okay, so as I say, yes, anyone who remembers MS-DOS and all the old command line editors and so on, Linux is pure is a return to those days. You can get graphic interfaces for it, but the default installations of Linux all involve command lines. But the wonderful thing about it, in comparison to things like Windows, at least up until recently, is that Linux, out of the box, you do an installation, or you make a boot drive and boot it up, and it's automatically connected to your network. There's no mucking about. It finds a network card, it says this is a network card, slap, you're online. No issues. Right, well, that, believe it or not, we've now installed those little applications. We've got PHP on there now, so we've got a web service on there. And we've got a text editor, a half decent one. And that's pretty much it in terms of setting up software for Linux. Now what we do is we're going to start putting all the network connections together and then install Pi-hole itself. So what we'll do is we'll have to open up the Ethernet connection window and then find out what we're going to do. So we'll do that through sudo, and then we open up nano, which is the text editor we just installed, and then we find a file called eth0 from the network interfaces section. So network interfaces, oops, .d eth, no, eth, not etch, 0. So sudo nano etc network interfaces.d etho. So that should have a couple of lines of text in it. It does indeed. So what we're doing is essentially we're setting up a DHCP server. So we don't want to be using dynamic DHCP assignation and configuration. We want to do that manually, and we want to make a static service. So what we need to do is the first thing is we change DHCP to static. So now we have a static IP address on this machine, and then we set up the addresses of what we have. So like most internal networks, everything's pretty configurable. So address, so your internal network address is 192.168, and the block is off again, 192.168.1. And now here you have to set the address of this machine. So we're setting the address of the IP address of this machine on your network. So in my case I'm going to make it 100. No, I'm not. I'm going to make it 120. So there's enough space below that to get everything set up. And the gateway, which is where your router normally lives, if you can spell gateway, is usually 1. And your net mask is network is next, which is the root of your network. So that's basically the root of your third number. So everything's on 192.168. The gateway is the first port on that network, so your network is always the 0 point of that network. 168.1.0. So there you go. Your broadcast is the upper limit of your network, which is 192.168. So I'm typing all this in. I just realised you can't see a thing I'm doing because it's all pointing at the wrong bit. It should be up there. My mistake. I do apologise. That is me being a really crap editor. I suppose we could get that slightly closer without losing the full screen on it, so you guys could read that a little clearer. Because if I go any closer, it's just going to look. Unless I've got something I can maybe sit the thing on. Do I have a box or something I can sit it on? Let's see what I can sit it on. That would do. That might do the trick. Right, let me just do a bit of pickling. Hang on. Let me move that keyboard out of the way for a second. Editing skills minimal. So if I put that on there without it falling over, like so. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that might be a little bit more friendly for you. The majority of stuff that happens is going to happen up on this screen. I can just tilt it down if I need to. So let's leave that on there, shall we? So yeah, as I was saying, allow hot plug Ethernet. That is the default line that was on that file was allow hot plug eth0 and then iFace. And what I've done is I've deleted the I and the F off that line. I did that the last time I did this as well. Bizarre how I make the same mistakes twice, isn't it? So yeah, so allow hot plug etho, that's just the main network configuration for this area of the network. iFace etho inet static, which means internet interface is static, so static IP addresses, and I'm setting the address for this machine, which is 120 on the network. The gateway is the first port on the network, which is your router address basically. So whatever address you type in when you try to log into your internet service provider router is the gateway. Netmask is always 255.255.255.0. Network is your entire network address, so 192.168.1 is your network address, and obviously then use the .0 so you've got the phone number batch, and then your broadcast address is basically the upper limit of that same network. So 192.168.1.255. Alright, so in order to save that file, we go Control O, which then makes me save the file, wrote 7 lines. We have one other line to add, which is the DNS name servers. So what you basically have is the servers you're going to use for this network on the outside world. So when you hit the World Wide Web, what servers out there are going to control your DNS name services and are going to convert your internal IP addresses to proper addresses. Now, you can use quite a few different ones. Google supplies some, they're usually the most reliable. Cloudflare has some. They're usually they're a little bit more controversial, but they are supposed to be a lot faster. But just for the services of this demonstration, I'll use the default Google ones. So Google's name servers are 8888 and 8844. So again, we'll save that file, 8 lines saved, and then we will exit. Is that Control X? Yes, it is. So you won't see any difference there, but down the bottom there we now have our Pine command line sitting there quite happily. Right, so that is our network set up. So we need to reboot, so we'll do a reboot through sudo reboot. I'm having this so close I'm going to have to keep moving it every time I do something. But that's fine. I want you guys to know how this works. I want it to be an educational process for you. So I'll just stop whinging and get it done. Okay, so hit enter on that and the machine reboots. So you'll see popping up, you should have 4 acorns or pine cones, whatever they're called, will appear on there. That's my television's thing. And this happened in the last reboot as well. Do a full off and on recycle. Hopefully it'll work this time. There we go. 4 pine cones and the login. So say I'm using the default login command on this particular instance, but you should reset your passwords and so on. It's just common sense. Right, so now we can actually check and see if our network settings have picked up. So we'll go to ifconfig, which gives you the full network config of your machine. A little bit out of focus, apologies, there we go. So what you can see on there is the address of your network information. So what we should have is static things set up. So what we've got, iNet address there, that's our machine's IP address, so that's 120, that's us configured. Broadcast is there, mask is there, so everything's set up. It's picked up everything we think it should. Okay, so we're good on that. Now that is now a static IP, so that will be the same IP address every time this machine gets onto the network. It will always grab 120. Okay, so the next, I'll clear the screen so we can get back up to the top and back into proper focus. Now we install Pi-hole. That's it. There we go. So, as normal, we're doing an installation for something fundamental, so we need our password again. Now we're just gonna do the update. So what I'll do is I'll move that viewpoint down to the bottom of the screen, which is where most of this is going to happen now, and then we'll go from there. So it should be a few minutes, it shouldn't take too long. Literally that was it, just that one single mistake. Okay, so now we have an actual installation going on. So again, I shall move that out of the way and we'll try and get a good view on the screen. Now I apologise, I don't have a professional setup for this kind of stuff. I've literally just got a TV and a mouse and a keyboard. So this is the Pi-hole installer. Telling you that it's free, but you can donate if you want. Now we've already set all that up, so we've already got Google for the DNS provider, so we're just going to keep that. Now these are third-party lists for recognised malware and advert hosts. Leave these as is, so don't change anything. In order to change anything out of Linux before you use the arrow keys and space to change what the options are. Star means it's highlighted. Just pressing enter, we'll click OK. We want to block on IP4 and IP6, so we'll leave that as is. We've already got that set up, so IP address 192.168.1.120/24. Now remember to take note of that, because you'll need that later on to enter into your systems for changing your IP address, for changing your DNS server. So we'll OK that for now. Okay, now that's just a warning that essentially says that your router might still try to change your computer address, but it is right in where it says that most routers nowadays won't do that. If you've set your own IP address or a static IP address for a device on your network, then generally the router is clever enough to say to not try and override that, unless your ISP is a bit of a Machiavellian entity. So OK on that. Now that's the IPv6 address. It's worthwhile taking a note of that one as well, because you may need to enter that into your IP settings, your DNS settings on your router as well. Yeah, we do want to install that, yes. We want to install the web server, like TTPD, yes we do. Want the log queries, yes. Privacy mode for FTL, yes we do. FTL is your DNS privacy settings. So we want to show everything, hide domains, whatever. Again, just leave everything as normal, because your Pi-hole is going to do all the work anyway. This is literally just for your server, and it also records all that stuff. Okay, so now we've done all that. That's the web server configured and Pi-hole configured. So now what we're doing again is we're actually now installing all the software, installing the admin, installing the web server, and all the software that a grown boy needs. It's literally just a matter of following this through. It's just watching the text going up. You can learn a fair bit about what it does. Some of the stuff in here is quite clever. I believe, if I remember rightly, there's some slightly humorous comments in here. It's called FTL, so it does take advantage of the fact that it's calling itself FTL. Okay. So again, this is your settings. You're all done. You're ready to run. You have a working installation now of Pi-hole. These are all the information. Obviously, this is a test one that I'm doing online, so these details will not be relevant for my admin page. So don't try hacking my PC with this. But I do enjoy the fact that at the very top corner there, you've been Picarded. Right. So, as it says, there is a web interface we can look at. So what I'll do is I'll actually just show you that interface on the machine. Just give me a second to just get it on screen. 192. Is Pi-hole, and that's your admin screen. So essentially what you've got there is you've got something taken over, just filtering stuff out from your services, making sure that everything is clean. So in order to set your PC up to use that, you need to go into the adapter settings for your network. So what I shall do with that is I'll show you that as well. This is my network. So I want to change adapter settings. And this is my actual active network connection at the moment, and what you need to do is go into that. Normally it's set on that, obtain DNS server address automatically, and to set it manually, it's just basically that. If I do that and then click OK to the window capture, you'll see that we're now starting to get queries. So these are adverts being blocked by the Pi-hole. Ain't that neat? Now you can log in. Now the password is the one that you saw on the screen a little while ago, so I'm just going to try that on this one. Again, this will be deleted after this session. Log in. And there you go. So if I look at the query log, that shows me what's coming in from computers. So that's a Google specific one. At the moment these are all okay, they're all happy. And because the only computer actually set up on this at the moment is Epsilon H2O, which is the computer you're looking at, that's what's saying all your domains. So that's where everything's coming through. As naughty stuff comes in, you'll see you have something on there that will automatically block it, and it'll say whitelist on there. So that's good stuff. So that's it ready, that's it working. I know that things are going through, it's been checked, it's been validated, it's been checked, it's been signed off. So that is pretty much it in terms of setting up the Pi-hole itself. The next thing you have to worry about is actually finishing setting up the Pine64. So the hard bit really kind of is done. Now all the kind of software set up and all that kind of magic is all sorted out. Our focus is totally off. So let's fix that. Now we need to get it working on the touchscreen. So how do we do that? Well, again, it's config files. Pretty much everything in Linux is done through config files, and those config files are useful things. So what we need to do is, again, I've referred to the Pine64 forum for this. What I want to do here is just OK that window and take us back into the Pine64 main window. Okay, so touchscreen. Always the bane of my life. Why did I pick a touchscreen for the Pine64? Because I thought it was cool. It is cool. It is cool. Now bear in mind, the Pine64's touchscreen will not work as a touchscreen in Linux. I should have really said that right up the front of the video. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, we need all the other options that we have on the system to make it work. The Pine can use the touchscreen as just an ordinary display as well. If you install a GUI for Linux, then I think it will actually work as a touchscreen. I might do that as another video at some point, if I can see about getting that to work. But anyway, so what we need to do is try and get this touchscreen working. So we need to basically get hold of the right config files. Now again, this is off the Pine64 forum, a member called Stephen Fleming, and the way to get to it is on Pine64, Pine64 LTS, Sopine Compute Model, P64 LTS, Sopine Hardware, Accessories and POT, LCD Touchscreen on the forums. I'll put links to all this stuff in the forums as well, so it should be good and it should be easy enough for you to follow. But for the time being, let's follow this through. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is open a file. So let's open up sudo nano /boot /unv.txt, and there's our text file. Now, there's quite a lot to this text file, but as you can see, there's a section there that says to enable LCD or HDMI, if not changed it will use default. Experimental. So what we need to do is we need to go down to that line there, remove them. Now we want it to have the primary screen is LCD and the secondary screen is HDMI. Okay, so that's basically all we have to do, I think. Yeah, and then essentially we save the file by using Control O. Right. Now I believe that's it. Fairly convinced that's pretty much all we need to do. Okay, and then essentially we need to reboot. So what I'll need to do, I'm going to remove the keyboard from the equation for the moment. I'm going to bring the camera this way to move the balance box out of the way for the moment, and I am going to switch the Pine64 off to work properly. But there we are, there's the Pine64 again. So what I need to do is the exact opposite of what I did a little minute ago, or well, about 10 minutes or so ago now I think, wasn't it? Let's try and get back in focus though. So there we are, in focus. So what I'm doing is I'm reconnecting this little cable, trying to be careful whilst doing it backwards. So slide that into there, pop that down, and then we want to slide that back over there, like so, pop that down. Now, this is where the magic happens, I hope. So what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I need something to balance this on, because these cables are very, very large. This came on, it's a good sign. It doesn't usually go white like that, it usually comes on. Just make sure everything is clicked in properly. Oh. Okay, so after a little bit of faffing, I think there's something wrong with the adapter, so that full-size SD card I showed you at the start of the video wasn't working properly. I can't think of any other reason, but basically what I'll do is, essentially once those command lines have been changed, then everything should work absolutely fine. Once you've set essentially these lines here, what I'm showing you here is the config file for my working Pi-hole installation. So these two lines, disp screen 0 equals LCD, disp screen 1 equals HDMI. Once you've set that, that's basically all you need to do. The rest of the options on this screen are all default. I don't honestly think I've changed anything else in this file when I was doing all that. All this is HDMI, pretty much everything else in there is all to do with display adapters. You don't have to disable or enable anything else. Yeah, and this may be the only one that may change, I'm not entirely sure. I can't load that file back in again now, so I can't check. But just check at the very bottom of that config file. And just make sure that that is uncommented. I think it is anyway, but again it's HDMI, so it doesn't really matter, so I don't think it really makes any difference. There is one other thing you can try, which is having a look at this file, xorg.conf. But all I was trying to do there was try and rotate the screen so that I'd have slightly less bump at the bottom, but that didn't actually work. But there is an option apparently, if you can get that working, if you want to rotate the orientation of the screen, then you can do it using that file, but I've never actually managed to get it to work. But basically, I mean, that's it. That's essentially everything done. And yeah, everything should be going through the Pi-hole. And once that's running, then it's running. It doesn't need to have anything on the screen. It's all running in the background. It's all running off the kind of memory balance on your Linux machine. So yeah, that's it. Pi-hole is operational. Yeah, so there you go. That's the main Pi-hole window. My Pi-hole is now working. And as you can see, it's been running for a few days now. 24 hours stats on there, and everything that's going through. So this is how much information has been going through based on various different machines. As you can see, that my network is pretty much overrun by my gaming PC, especially there. And that's all the different types of things that have been. So you get loads and loads of kind of stuff on there as to how it works. So that's Pi-hole. But of course, the main thing is that essentially it's running on the good old Pine64. So if you have one and you're a bit of a loss what to do with it, then that's one good option. It certainly is going to be very useful for me. Now that I've done this video, I'm going to take it downstairs and I'm going to have it all wired up behind something. The touchscreen being there means that I don't need to carry a PC around with it. As I say, I think the issues I was having there were to do with the card reader rather than the actual Pine64 setup. The process I went through for the basic setup for my default box was exactly the same. Pine64 is the operating system ID, by the way. This one, Pine64 is the username, the default username for Pine64. Obviously the passwords and everything I've done for this security wise are changed. So yeah, plus which is all on a private network protected by VPN, so you can't get none. But yeah, I honestly do hope that you will find this useful, and that it's something you'll be able to run with. And if you've enjoyed this as a Pine64 video, then please like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And hopefully I'll do some more stuff electronics based, if not necessarily Pine64 based, in the future. I am thinking about mucking about some Arduino stuff in the future, and I'm quite enjoying a little bit of electronics nowadays, so hopefully we'll get into that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Cheerio.